The 2024 NFL season is over, and who could have predicted the Super Bowl would go that way? Well, a couple people in the comments of my last video did. Go Birds. Keep doubting the Birds because the Birds keep winning. Jim MCG, Birds by 14 plus. Dead on. Could have had them by 18. Really could have had them by 34. Today, I want to take a look at the Super Bowl itself, kind of go over the film, talk about what it shows us, and then also I want to go over the Chiefs' offseason in total, where they can make some money, what kind of targets they could have in free agency, and what could they do with the draft picks that they have. So first things first, let's hop into the film. All right, let's start off this video with a bit of film breakdown. This is a really great play to showcase exactly what the Kansas City Chiefs wanted to do today. This is going to be an RPO. They're going to have the option to either hand it off to Pacheco here and have him just run kind of an outside zone this way. And then they've also got Xavier Worthy in motion. He's going to come around here into the flat. And they've got a slant here from Juju Smith-Schuster. The goal is to put a lot of stress on Cooper DeJean here. He's going to have to make a decision. Do I want to take away this slant, or do I want to come down and try to stop Xavier Worthy in the flat? And if somehow he takes away both, then they still have the option of just handing it off to Pacheco. But what you'll see here is Cooper DeJean decides to come down, play Xavier Worthy in the flat. It opens up Juju Smith-Schuster behind him, hits him with a quick slant, quick first down. This is exactly the type of game that the Chiefs want to play. Lots of eye candy, lots of stress on defenders to make the right decision and take advantage when they make the wrong one. Here's the first real disaster red alarm play, and it's only the fourth play of the game. As a quarterback, when you receive the ball, you have a set number of steps in your drop that you are expected to do. And it can be play specific depending on how much time you're trying to buy. If it's a long developing play, you might take more steps back, that sort of thing. What you're going to find here is that when the tackles have a real wide set to try to create that pocket for the QB to step into, when you're from the gun and you take a 5 or a 7 step drop, a lot of the times that is too far back and the edge rushers will just kind of naturally guide right into you. The tackles aren't necessarily doing anything wrong. They're creating the biggest pocket that they can. But as a quarterback, you either need to adjust by not stepping this far back or by stepping up early so that you can get into the pocket. Mahomes ends up taking 5 steps on this drop to the point that he is nearly 10 whole yards behind the line of scrimmage. And the pass rush just kind of naturally gets guided right into him and causing a lot of unnecessary pressure. And this was really, I think, the game plan for the Eagles. I've said to my friends that, I think the best way to beat Mahomes is to play really good contained. You're not necessarily pass rushing with moves and trying to get all crazy with spins, and you really just want to stay dedicated to that rush lane so that way that there is no window for Mahomes to just kind of naturally step up and run and go convert this 3rd and long with his legs. And the Eagles do such a good job, and this is like a premier play of that they create this nice wall in front of him. When he does step up and find room to scramble, Milton Williams breaks off and he's right in front of him. Mahomes is forced to take his eyes off of the field to turn around and try to run the opposite way, something you really should never do, and it nearly leads to an interception on this play. We're a bit later into the game now, and you're going to see the exact same thing here. We're from the gun, 5-step drop, we're nearly 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat just kind of naturally guide into him. Nolan Smith does a really good job of disengaging here, getting a hand on Mahomes and forcing an errant throw that causes them to have to punt early. It felt like very early this pressure was getting to Mahomes and causing him to be frustrated. Here, he's kind of adapting to these wide rush lanes. He just takes a 1-step hitch and throw, but he's kind of rushing himself through the process so much that he ends up kind of dirting this ball, and it's out of reach. Kelsey's not able to get a good hand on it. Now, this play is really interesting. It's actually a tight end screen. They've got Kelsey one-on-one on Sweat. He's supposed to just chip him and then sit here in the flat, get his pass, and try to go upfield. This is a great attempt to try to get this pass rush to settle down a little bit. The problem is the way this play is designed, they really want to sell that this is a play action. So Creed Humphrey doesn't just immediately pull to go out and pick up the edge rusher that Josh Sweat that's being chipped here. He actually sells. He stands there, he puts up his hands, and then he releases. And that's actually the way the play is designed. They ran the same exact concept against the Bills just 2 weeks ago. Either Josh Sweat is just so fast he blows it up, or he had it scouted. I'm not entirely sure, but because of his speed, they're able to sack Mahomes very quickly on the screen. This time around, I'm really not entirely sure what went wrong. They're going to have Kelsey and Pacheco double team Josh Sweat here. Mahomes is just going to take one step, and he actually does have a quick comeback from Xavier Worthy here at the top. He doesn't throw it, and I'm not entirely sure what he sees to where he doesn't want to throw it, because Juju's route here is taking Cooper DeJean away. So Cooper DeJean's not really in the path to the ball here, and they really just need to get this back to a third and manageable. You're not trying to go for the home run here. Instead, he turns down that quick comeback. He tries to step up into a pocket, and there's just so much happening that he ends up stepping right into a sack. He does have lanes to kind of go left or right and just kind of go outside. If he just scrambles straight out to the right, maybe he can make something, but because of stepping right into the defender, they're not able to pull anything off on this play. It feels weird to say that down just 10 points, Mahomes is rattled, but I really do think at this point in the game, he is completely rattled. On this play, we have a play action boot. Mahomes is going to scramble out into the flat by design. And then as far as the receivers, we've got a deep crosser from this side, a clear out, and then a deep out. As for the last remaining guy in the trips look, he's actually just going to set a block, so that way they have more protection for Mahomes to get out here. The unfortunate part is that it's all entirely covered up. They had this play scouted out. They were able to layer multiple defenders in the path of this layers concept. And even though nobody's really within the vicinity of Mahomes, and he doesn't necessarily have to throw this yet, he decides to try to force it into tight coverage. And not only is it picked, but it's taken back for points by Cooper DeJean. The last person you want to be throwing a pick to is probably their punt returner. But it's not over for them yet. There's still a lot to look at here. Here we are, 3rd and 9. We need a play to get back in this. And unfortunately, once again, a 5-step drop. The pass rushers are just going to collapse right on him. He's forced to step up, and he's once again sacked. This one's particularly frustrating because if he doesn't step back so far, this is such a good clean pocket. This is actually a great pass pro set that he could sit in, and Creed Humphreys in front of him with no one to block. He could scramble, he could run, he could buy more time. There's so much that this play could have been, and instead it's immediate pressure because we are once again stepping back right into that pass rush lane. This play, everyone's sitting in just drop spot zones, and we're going to have a route that crosses right behind them. Mahomes just wants to look and just hit this right there, right in between those zones. The problem is the left guard subbing in at left tackle, Joe Tooney. Josh Sweat is going to hand him his lunch on this play. He absolutely just bull rushes him right into Mahomes' lap. Mahomes cannot step into the throw. He gets bumped. It's off target, and Zach Bond makes an athletic play. This was almost a lucky break. DeAndre Hopkins is running a deep crosser, and for the first time today, Mahomes is going to have room to scramble. Nolan Smith here is going to lose his footing against Jawan Taylor. He's going to fall down, and Mahomes is going to scramble out into the flat, and there's a wide open Hopkins waiting for him, except the throw is good enough, honestly, but DeAndre Hopkins couldn't come down with it. This is probably one of the most frustrating plays. There's a lot that goes wrong here, and I think it's almost like it's not the nail in the coffin, but it really showed just how far behind the Chiefs really were at this point. We don't get the big 5-step drop on this one. Mahomes just takes a quick hitch. Kelsey is basically clearing out this space so that Juju can sit down behind him, and it's just a quick throw and catch. The problem, Jalen Carter sees Mahomes going for the throw, and he puts his hands up, and Mahomes is forced to tuck the ball, miss the window, and in a panic, he just tucks it and runs right into a sack. This is another play where, once again, I feel like the pocket did enough and Mahomes just kind of panicked. But there's another layer to this too. Xavier Worthy here at the bottom. What route is he running? Well, he's just sitting. It's almost like a wide receiver screen. He's just ready. And normally when you see this much distance between a DB and a wide receiver, and that wide receiver is your fastest guy and you're dealing with pass rush, this is just such an easy hitch. You get 5-6 yards. Maybe he even breaks a tackle. You get 10-15. All of a sudden things are moving and you guys can make a statement coming out of the half, but he doesn't even look at it. And this is where it really felt like the Chiefs had lost any chance they had at making a comeback. Here we get another 5-step drop. In this situation, though, it ends up actually kind of working out for them, except when Pacheco goes to chip Josh Sweat here, he ends up actually checking him so hard, he basically disengages from Jawan Taylor and now has a free rush lane at Mahomes. And Mahomes is already feeling the pressure, so he steps up, not seeing him, and just gets taken down right away. Only a couple more plays left. This one just frustrates me because it feels like it was so late. It's almost the exact play that they ran earlier, but this time they're keeping Hunt in to protect. So protection here, Worthy out, up, cross. Mahomes rolling out. Almost the exact play that we saw before, but these types of rollouts are how you can help deal with this intense pass rush. So why are we doing it finally with 20 minutes left to play, down 4 scores? Last play, this was officially the dagger. It's 4th and 5. It's just a quick, we're not even really looking at anything else. DeAndre Hopkins up and out. Mahomes is just going to turn and throw it right to him. The throw is not fast enough. Generally with this type of throw, you really want it to be right there, bam, right on the break. Instead, Hopkins is all the way by the sideline by the time the ball makes it to him, and Avonte Maddox has ample time to go and make a play. I will also point out that they did have Watson here motioning in from the boundary, and he actually comes and sits down in kind of a soft spot of the zone. I really feel like they could have had this too if Mahomes hadn't been rushing so much to try to make this comeback. And of course, the next play is the big touchdown pass to Devonta Smith, and the game was, for all intents and purposes, it was over. So after looking at the film, it definitely shows that there was a lot of struggles from a lot of different sides. Obviously, the O-line didn't hold up nearly as good as you would have hoped. They kind of got their lunch handed to them for most of the game. However, the game plan itself, I think, had issues. They didn't really do an effective job of utilizing the pocket space when they did get pocket space, because we were dropping so far back trying to buy time that it was dropping back right into pass rush lanes. We had no run game. They only had 1 rush attempt on their first 4 drives. They only had 11 rush attempts the entire game. Only 7 of them were designed runs, 4 of them were scrambles. That compared to Reed averaging 26 rush attempts per game against Fangio and having well over 20 rush attempts the rest of this postseason run. Now, they chose not to run because they didn't think that they would be effective at it. And I understand that line of thinking. They were never really efficient runners all season long. They would get 1, 2, 3, 4. They didn't go backwards, but they didn't really get a lot. However, I think running keeps a defensive line honest. I think it keeps them from just pinning their ears back and rushing all the time. And I think the choice not to run, especially early, kind of just helped them dig that hole that they couldn't climb out of. On top of that, just stupid mistakes from Mahomes himself. I mean, he had 2 clean throws that should have been picked off. One of them was in pick 6, but the other one earlier in the game really should have been pick 2 on that first drive. And overall, I think a lot of the Chiefs just kind of looked old and slow. I think relying on guys like Hopkins, Kelsey, Juju Smith-Schuster coming off multiple knee injuries. These guys just aren't explosive enough, and there's a reason that Worthy was basically the only shining light aside from the run defense, and it's that he's young, he's explosive, he's fast. They really got to hope that Rashee Rice has that step when he comes back next year, and they might want to invest in some more youth in the receiving options and in the run game. Pacheco didn't exactly look quick basically since he returned from that injury. We'll see if he looks better after an offseason. I do think that Spags deserves a lot of praise still. He went out of his way to stop the run. They did an incredibly effective job of that, even more effective than anybody had done all season. And if not for the turnovers, as far as actually marching down the field and scoring, Spags only gave up 10 points in that first half. Mahomes just handed them the 2 touchdowns to end it, to put him down 3 scores. And we've seen the Chiefs come back from 10 points in literally every Super Bowl that they've won. One of the numbers that really jumped out to me when I was looking over the Chiefs in the Super Bowl is that in the 5 Super Bowls that they've been in, they average 5.2 offensive points per game in the first half. 5.2. They were shut out this year, only 3 points last year, only 6 points in the game against the Bucs, 10 points against the 49ers the first time, and 14 against the Eagles. But half of that actually came from a scoop and score. So they actually only scored 7 in that first half offensively. I'm not exactly sure if it's Mahomes or it's Reed or who, but the Chiefs just get off to a slow start in these Super Bowl matchups. And if a team can go out there and punch you in the mouth like the Bucs did and like the Eagles did, then it kind of creates this insurmountable gap that even Mahomes can't overcome. Now, after looking at that game and looking over the season, there's definitely a couple glaring issues that need to be addressed this offseason. Obviously, they don't have any answer at left tackle. They got to figure something out there. Outside of Chris Jones, this team had no pass rush unless it was from these schematic blitzes, which obviously guys have been able to take advantage of. But you'd like to see this team be able to get more individual pressure without blitzing. I think the Eagles really exposed that this secondary is a bit limited. Yes, they were selling out for the run, but they really trusted McDuffie to go out there and cover A.J. Brown, and he got beat almost every time. It was really a one-sided matchup. As of right now, the Chiefs have $11.5 million to spend in the 2025 offseason. There are a lot of ways that we can make some money. The easiest one to me is extending Joe Thuney. Right now, he has no guarantees. He's on the last year of his deal. Players don't like playing without guarantees. It just naturally makes sense to extend him. It frees up $11.8 million. So we'll add that to our cap space. Another player that I think just makes a lot of sense to go ahead and extend is Trent McDuffie. He's been an All-Pro twice, I think now, right? So obviously they're going to want to keep him around. They still have the 5th-year option that they can pick up, and then the extension, obviously. It just makes sense. And the last easy one, I shouldn't say easy, it's a bit more of a debate. They have the option of either extending or cutting Travis Kelce. From my point of view, I really think we saw the limits of Kelce at his age. It's hard to imagine that he just has this crazy bounce back year and it's the Travis Kelce of 2-3 years ago when he is the age that he is. I think it's important to get more youth out on the field. I would probably go through with a cut and move on. Maybe make some calls about potentially trading him to a young developmental quarterback who needs just a nice zone-friendly tight end receiving option. I don't think the Chiefs will do that, though. So instead, for this exercise, we're going to extend him. Extending him frees up $13 million. We can get him some guarantees on his deal for this year, so he's not uncomfortable playing without guarantees. Everything will get offloaded into next year, and then we can do the same song and dance next year. If he decides to come back, we can maybe do it again or move on from him, or if he chooses to retire, then it's just done and dusted. Now, we do need to set $8.4 million aside for our draft picks, so that leaves us with $28.9 million for free agency, and we have some very key free agents that I do not want to lose. There's 3 of them here that I really think are priorities because of their price, but also because of their impact on the field. Trey Smith is the obvious first one. He's been a top guard at his position for several years. He had a bit of a down year this year. However, I don't think that that's indicative of an overall decline. I think it was just kind of a weird year. Maybe they were asking him to do a bit more to help out with Jawan Taylor, and it created just a lot of pressure on him. Let's bolster the offensive line, and I think it'll just get easier and he can execute the way he always has. We're expecting kind of a 4-year, $21 million a year. It's approximately going to be like a $6 million cap hit for him this year, so that'll chip into our 28.9 that we have. The other priority for me is Justin Reed. The Chiefs don't have a ton of depth at safety. They keep kind of taking late swings in the draft or paying guys on cheap 1-year deals to come in and kind of fill that role. Justin Reed, I think, is a consistency that they really need to keep around. He's going to be kind of expensive. I'm expecting him to get a deal similar to something like Jesse Bates. That'd be about 3 years at $15.5 a year. We're expecting about a $5 million cap hit this year. And another player, this one's a cheaper one, but I don't really want to let Tershawn Wharton walk. He was the most effective pass rusher, had the highest win rate aside from Chris Jones. And I already mentioned we've had struggles there. Even if we decide to invest in the draft at defensive tackle, I think Tershawn Wharton would be a great option as a rotational pass rusher on third downs, where you can just send him out there and tell him to go get it. I'm going to bring him back. We're expecting about a 2-year, $8 million a year, approximately about $3 million, $4 million for his first year of cap hit. So at this point, we've got about $14 million left over to spend. There are 2 positions that I'm really looking to fill. Because we're letting Nick Bolton walk due to his price, we really want to bring in some sort of linebacker talent. And then, of course, I want to dress left tackle now. Even if we draft a left tackle, there's no guarantee that a tackle good enough is going to land in our lap in the draft. And even if one good does land in our lap, there still is an element of development, getting used to the game. I don't really love just throwing a tackle out there, especially with a $500 million quarterback he has to protect. There are 2 left tackles that jump out to me that I really like. Dan Moore Jr. from Pittsburgh and Alaric Jackson from the Rams. Jackson would definitely be my preferred option. I think he overall played better last year than Dan Moore Jr., but Dan Moore, I think, is a suitable replacement as well. Both of them are looking in that $13 to $15 million a year range. You could set them up with a 3-year deal, have an out in the 3rd year if we take a left tackle and he develops and you want to replace him. For this exercise, we're going to take Alaric Johnson, and it's going to cost us about $5 million this year. As for the linebackers, there's 3 that jump out to me. Robert Spillane from the Raiders, Terrell Dodson, formerly from Buffalo, now coming out of Miami, and Dre Greenlaw, former 49ers linebacker. I just see Greenlaw as such an effective scheme fit in Kansas City. I think he's an immediate improvement potentially over Nick Bolton if he can play at his pre-injury level, but he is coming off of 2 injuries. I think that just makes him cheaper, and I think he's the kind of player I'd want to throw a lot of money at to try to bring in, maybe not a lot of money, but more than other people. Give him either a 1-year prove-it deal or 2 years and see what we could do with him. I'm expecting him to cost us about $3-4 million this first year. So after those 5 players are addressed, we're left over with about $7 million to fill holes, and we still have our draft picks to get through. And there still is the option of cutting Kelsey. If we chose to go that route, we would actually free up another $7 million, have $14 million to fill those holes, and just make it that much easier. Now let's take a look at the draft. We have 6 picks. I'm going to focus on the 4 top 100 picks and go over kind of my thought process on these. Now, if the Chiefs can't address left tackle, or if a good one falls into their lap, it makes a lot of sense to take one in the first round. In my situation, though, I feel pretty comfortable with Alaric Jackson, and I don't feel the need to super invest this first round pick into the left tackle position when I'm not even convinced that I could take one that would start over Alaric Jackson. So looking at the board, I'm using PFF's big board here to kind of look and see who would be available around this region. I really like Donovan Ezeraku, pass rusher out of Boston College. He has great length and burst. He's explosive, and he has a lot of moves in his toolkit, which I think is something that Spags likes. We've seen him take Felix Anudike-Uzomah for a similar reason. He was a very toolsy player. Unfortunately, FAU has not played much, and I think that athleticism has been an issue for him. Ezeraku, much more explosive, much faster player. I would be very happy with this pick to pair up with Karlaftis. Karlaftis gets a lot of pressure if you look at the true pressure numbers, 5th in pressures this year, 9th in pressures last year. However, both those seasons he was 47th and 33rd respectively in his pass rush win rate. So he's not actually beating the guy in front of him a lot. He's just an incredibly effective cleanup guy. I need someone who can beat the tackle in front of them and create true pressure by winning, just like Chris Jones does. At pick number 63, this seems like a good opportunity to address the tackle situation for the future. If Alaric Jackson doesn't work out, we want to have a secondary option, and Jawan Taylor hasn't exactly been a premier pickup for us. So there is the option too that if Alaric Jackson does work out, we still want to replace Jawan Taylor next year and cut him to free up $20 million. I'm interested in Jonas Savanea here out of Arizona. One of the largest tackles here in the class. He's 6'8". He has great spatial awareness, great hand quickness. His biggest issue is that he can be bull rushed despite his size. He doesn't exactly set the best anchor in his protection. Taking him now, we have a year most likely to develop him, to work on that anchor, work on that play strength, and try to help him develop that tool so that way he can be better in the pros and eventually replace one of the two tackles. Just 3 picks later at 66, I mentioned I wanted more youth in the receiving game. I also don't know that anyone on this team is a really talented contested catch guy or has that same zone prowess that Travis Kelce does. I was kind of looking for that for this pick here in the draft, and I came across Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. He's 6'4", 217, great size, great at identifying holes. I really particularly like the way he plays cover 2 zone. He does a really effective job of finding that hole shot between the corner and the safety and just kind of sitting in between there. He slows down. He doesn't rush out of it. He waits and he's ready for that throw to him. And he makes a lot of catches with his hands, not with his body. He rarely drops passes. He's great in the contested catch game. His biggest downside is just that he's not a super explosive athlete. But when you have Xavier Worthy, when you have Rashee Rice, they're going to create holes, and Higgins is the perfect guy to fill those holes and be ready for the catch at all times. Our final of these top 100 picks, number 95. I think that McDuffie at the boundary has been a bit of a mixed bag, is how I would describe it. He's had several games where he's just locked up and been super effective, but he's also had a lot of games, especially against bigger body receivers, where that size does come into a factor, and when you put him on someone like A.J. Brown, he struggles. I also think that Trent McDuffie as a player just naturally is a better fit in the slot, where he can have more of an impact on the run game. What I would like to be able to do is in base personnel, 3 linebackers, 2 boundary corners, I would like to be able to put McDuffie at the boundary in those situations, and then in the nickel, when we bring in that slot corner, shift Trent McDuffie over to the slot and bring someone else in at that boundary. But the Chiefs really don't have anyone for that role. I'm looking at Kobe Bryant out of KU. He's local, he's nearby. What I really like about him is that he's long-armed and athletic. He has great instincts. He's a good ball hawk. He can go up, make plays, grab the ball out of the air, and we didn't see many interceptions this year for Kansas City, mind you. I also really love how effective he is as a tackler. If they run something like a screen or into the flat and he's in a drop zone, he will come down and lay the wood. His biggest question mark has been his top-end speed. He could get beat by real quick receivers just running a go right past him, but with his long arms and Spags' more press-heavy play style and quick throw, blitz-heavy play style, I think he's a really great scheme fit, and he gives me a lot of like L'Jarius Sneed vibes. I think it would be awesome to bring that type of player in, let McDuffie play more from the slot. It was about 9-to-1 boundary to slot ratio here in 2024, and I just think that he'd be so much more effective if we got him in the slot more often. So that's how I would handle the offseason and the draft. We can take a look here. I've got a little graphic to show you of how the team would look going into next year. Of course, all the main guys that were here last year are still here. Most of the O-line is the same. Still Mahomes under center, still Pacheco at running back, although they could address running back later on in the draft too if they do want someone with a bit more burst. Kelce is back. Maybe it's his last year. It's hard to say. As for the new faces on offense, we've got Jaden Higgins here at the boundary, Xavier Worthy in the slot, and Rashee Rice back on the opposite side boundary. Alaric Johnson to be our new left tackle, and I think that's a massive, massive improvement. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we've got Dre Greenlaw in to be alongside Drew Tranquill. I would like to see Leo Chenal on the field more often. I hope that he gets more opportunities to play, but it seems like they see him as a first down run defender base personnel guy, and he's the first to go off the board. They seem pretty happy with Drew Tranquill. He's still under contract, so I think this is more likely what we'll see in the nickel. Kobe Bryant is on the boundary as our CB2, Justin Watson as our CB1, and then Trent McDuffie in the slot. And Donovan Ezaraku joins Chris Jones, Treshaun Wharton, and George Karlaftis along the D-line. Let me know what you think about how we handled everything here. I think that no matter what happens this offseason, I don't think there's any reason to worry about the Chiefs' future. I think that there is a genuinely high chance that they are right back in the Super Bowl conversation this time next year. Let me know what you would do differently, and if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll see you next time for more football offseason. It's going to be a fun offseason, fun draft season. See you guys later. Peace.